My name is Sarah Chin, I'm 32 years old, and 3 days ago, I thought I knew what love looked like. I was wrong. I'm sitting in a cheap motel room right now, staring at my phone as it buzzes with the 100th call from my husband Marcus. The same husband who literally had me escorted out of our home by security guards 72 hours ago. The same man who looked me dead in the eye and said, "You were just holding me back, Sarah. I don't need you anymore." But let me start from the moment that shattered everything I believed about my life. It was Tuesday morning, and I was making Marcus his usual coffee, 2 sugars, splash of cream, exactly how he'd liked it for the past 8 years. The kitchen smelled like the vanilla candles I'd lit earlier, trying to make our small apartment feel more like home. Marcus was pacing by the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in hushed, excited tones. "Yes, sir. 85 million. The acquisition went through last night." I nearly dropped the coffee mug. 85 million? Marcus worked at a small tech startup that barely paid him $60,000 a year. We'd been scraping by, sharing a studio apartment in Queens, splitting grocery bills down to the penny. When he hung up, I was standing there with his coffee, mouth probably hanging open like a cartoon character. "Marcus?" I whispered. "Did you just say $85 million? His face transformed. For 8 years, I'd seen Marcus struggle with anxiety, with feeling like he wasn't good enough, with the weight of financial stress. But the man looking at me now was someone entirely different. His shoulders were straight, his jaw set, and there was something cold in his eyes I'd never seen before. "The company just got bought out," he said, not even taking the coffee from my hands. "My shares, they're worth more than we ever imagined." "Our shares," I corrected gently. "We're married, remember? We're partners." That's when he laughed. It wasn't the warm, nervous laugh I'd fallen in love with. It was sharp, bitter, almost cruel. "Partners?" He walked past me to the bedroom. "Sarah, you haven't contributed anything real to this relationship in years. You've been riding my coattails, working your little part-time job at the library, playing house while I built something actual." The words hit me like physical blows. I followed him, watching in disbelief as he pulled out a suitcase and started throwing clothes into it. "What are you doing?" My voice came out small, confused. "I'm moving out. Today. I already put a deposit down on a penthouse in Manhattan." He didn't even look at me. "You can stay here through the end of the month. After that, you'll need to figure something else out." I stood there, holding his coffee like an idiot, watching the man I'd loved since college pack his life away from mine in less than 10 minutes. "Marcus, I don't understand. Yesterday you were worried about making rent. Yesterday you held me and said you couldn't imagine life without me. What changed?" He finally stopped packing and turned to face me. "What changed?" "Money changed everything, Sarah. Real money. Life-changing money. And now I can see clearly for the first time in years." "See what clearly?" "That you've been dead weight." The coffee mug slipped from my hands and shattered on the hardwood floor. Hot liquid splashed across my bare feet, but I barely felt it. The pain in my chest was so much worse. "Dead weight?" I repeated. "Marcus, I supported you through graduate school. I worked 2 jobs so you could quit the restaurant and focus on the startup. I believed in you when no one else did. And I'm grateful," he said, but his tone suggested anything but gratitude. "But that was then. This is now. I'm about to enter a different world, Sarah. A world where I need a partner who can keep up. Someone sophisticated. Someone who brings something to the table besides good intentions and library late fees. I felt like I was drowning. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be the same man who'd proposed to me on the Brooklyn Bridge, who'd cried in my arms when his father died, who'd whispered that I was his anchor in every storm. So that's it? I managed to ask. 8 years, and you're just done? I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce papers. He zipped up the suitcase with a finality that echoed through the room. Try not to make this messy, okay? I'll make sure you're taken care of financially. You'll get something. Something. Like a consolation prize. As he headed for the door, I found my voice again. Marcus, wait. Please. Can we at least talk about this? Can we go to counseling? This is so sudden, so. He turned back, and for just a moment, I saw a flicker of the old Marcus. The uncertain, sweet man I'd married. But it was gone so fast I might have imagined it. Sarah, I'm sorry. I really am. But I can't take you where I'm going. And then he was gone. I stood in our apartment, my apartment now, I guess, surrounded by the shards of the coffee mug, listening to the echo of the door slamming. The vanilla candles were still burning, still trying to make this place feel like home, but it suddenly felt like a tomb. I called my sister Emma immediately, sobbing so hard I could barely get the words out. He left, I choked into the phone. Emma, he just left. He got rich and he left me like I was nothing. What do you mean he left? Sarah, slow down, you're not making sense. So I told her everything. The phone call, the money, the suitcase, the lawyer. By the end, Emma was silent for so long I thought the call had dropped. Emma? Are you there? I'm here, she said, and her voice sounded strange. Sarah, I need to tell you something. My blood went cold. What? Marcus called me yesterday. He asked me not to say anything until after he talked to you, but he said he was worried about how you'd handle the transition. He said you'd been struggling with depression and that he was afraid you might do something desperate. What are you talking about? I'm not depressed. I'm not. He said he's been supporting you financially and emotionally for years, and that the money was making him realize he needed to make some hard choices about his future. I couldn't breathe. Emma, that's not how it happened at all. Sarah, honey, maybe you need to think about whether you've been as much of a partner as you think you have. Marcus has been under a lot of pressure. I hung up on my own sister. That night, I called Marcus's best friend Jake, thinking surely someone would see how crazy this all was. But Jake's response was even worse. Sarah, I'm sorry, but Marcus has been talking about this for months. He said you'd been clingy lately, that you were resistant to him taking business trips, that you got upset when he worked late. Because I missed him. Because we're married. Look, I know this sucks, but maybe this is for the best. Marcus is about to be in a different league now. Maybe you both deserve to find people who are better matches. I realized then that Marcus hadn't just decided to leave me that morning. This had been planned. He'd been poisoning the well, telling our friends and family his version of our marriage, painting me as some kind of burden he'd been carrying out of obligation. But the cruelest part was still to come. 2 days after he left, I came home from the library to find 3 men in suits standing outside my door with official papers and a security guard. Mrs. Chen? We're here to execute an emergency restraining order. My hands shook as I read the documents. Marcus was claiming I'd been making threatening phone calls, that I'd shown up at his new office building, that I was unstable and potentially dangerous. None of it was true. I hadn't called him. I didn't even know where his office was. You have 1 hour to pack essential items, the lawyer said. Everything else will be held in storage until the legal proceedings are complete. Legal proceedings? I don't understand. He's the one who left me. Ma'am, according to our client, you've been served divorce papers and restraining order documentation multiple times, and you've ignored them. We're here to ensure Mr. Chen's safety and your compliance with the court order. I'd never seen any papers. I'd never been served anything. But there I was, packing a suitcase just like Marcus had 3 days earlier, except I was being escorted out by strangers while my neighbors watched through their peepholes. The security guard was polite but firm as he walked me to the building's exit. Ma'am, you're not permitted to return to this address until the restraining order is lifted or modified by the court. And that's how I ended up here, in this motel room that smells like disinfectant and old cigarettes, with nothing but a suitcase full of hastily grabbed clothes and a checking account with $347 in it. But here's the thing that's keeping me awake at night, staring at the water stain on the ceiling. I know Marcus. I've loved him for 8 years. The man who left me, who had me thrown out of my own home, who's painting me as some kind of obsessed ex-wife, that's not him. Which means someone is pulling his strings. And I think I know who. The call started exactly 72 hours after I was escorted out. I was sitting on the motel bed, eating gas station crackers for dinner and trying to figure out how to afford a lawyer, when my phone buzzed. Marcus's name on the screen made my stomach twist, but I answered anyway. Sarah, thank God. His voice was shaky, desperate. I need to see you. Are you insane? I shot back. You have a restraining order against me, remember? The one where you claimed I was stalking you? That wasn't. Sarah, please. Meet me at Prospect Park, by the lake. 1 hour. So you can have me arrested for violating the order you filed? I'll call my lawyer right now and have it temporarily lifted. Please. I'll text you the confirmation. Something in his voice made me pause. He sounded scared. Really scared. Marcus, what's going on? Not over the phone. Please, Sarah. 1 hour. He hung up, and within 10 minutes, I had a text from a law office confirming the restraining order had been temporarily suspended for the purpose of mediation. I should have stayed in that motel room. I should have ignored him completely. But after 8 years together, I could still hear the difference between Marcus being manipulative and Marcus being genuinely terrified. He was terrified. Prospect Park was nearly empty at 9 p.m. I found Marcus sitting on our old bench by the lake, the one where we used to feed ducks on Sunday mornings. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 days. His expensive new clothes, a designer jacket I'd never seen before, hung on him like a costume. Thank you for coming, he said when I sat down, careful to leave space between us. Talk. He was quiet for so long I thought he'd changed his mind. Then he said, Sarah, I think I made the biggest mistake of my life. Which part? Abandoning your wife or having her thrown out of her home? All of it. He turned to look at me, and his eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. I don't know what happened to me. It's like the money made me crazy. Like I became someone else. I wanted to feel vindicated, but mostly I just felt tired. Marcus, you didn't just wake up one day and decide to leave. You'd been planning this. You poisoned Emma against me. You lied to Jake. You filed legal papers claiming I was harassing you. I know how it looks, but... No. I stood up. You don't get to do this. You don't get to destroy my life and then show up 3 days later with regrets. Sarah, wait. He grabbed my wrist, and I saw something in his face that made me sit back down. What if I told you that none of those ideas were originally mine? What do you mean? He pulled out his phone and showed me a text thread. The name at the top made my blood freeze, Vanessa Morrison. Vanessa. Marcus's work colleague. The sleek, sophisticated marketing director who joined the startup 6 months ago. The woman who'd been so helpful in preparing Marcus for investor meetings. The woman who'd suddenly started showing up at our occasional work social events, always finding reasons to touch Marcus's arm and laugh at his jokes. I'd mentioned my discomfort to Marcus once, and he'd accused me of being jealous and insecure. Read them, Marcus said, handing me the phone. The texts went back weeks. At first, they seemed professional, discussions about the acquisition, about Marcus's potential windfall. But as I scrolled, they became more personal. More manipulative. Marcus, you're going to be a very wealthy man soon. You need to start thinking about what kind of life you want to live. Sarah seems sweet, but is she really the right partner for someone of your caliber? You deserve someone who can match your ambition. I've seen how she holds you back from networking events. She doesn't seem to understand the business world. You're going to outgrow her, Marcus. It's natural. Better to end things now before it gets messy. My hands were shaking as I read message after message of Vanessa subtly poisoning Marcus against me, making him question our relationship, our compatibility, our future. Marcus, I whispered, how could you not see what she was doing? Because she was telling me things I was already insecure about, he admitted. Things I'd been worried about for months. The money made everything feel more urgent, more real. And she was there, understanding the pressure, while I what? While you kept acting like nothing was changing. Like we could just stay the same people we'd always been. I wanted to scream at him that of course I'd been trying to keep us stable. Someone had to be the anchor while he was spinning out of control. But I kept reading. The messages got worse. Vanessa had been coaching Marcus on what to say to our friends and family. She'd suggested he needed to establish a pattern of my being unstable in case I contested the divorce. She'd even recommended the lawyer who filed the restraining order. Trust me, Marcus. A clean break is better for everyone. Sarah will thank you later when she finds someone more suitable for her lifestyle. But the final message thread made me feel physically sick. The restraining order worked perfectly. She's out of the apartment now. When are you moving in with me? Tomorrow. Thank you for handling everything, V. I couldn't have done this without you. That's what partners do for each other. Real partners. I looked up at Marcus, who was staring at the lake like he was seeing it for the first time. You moved in with her? The penthouse lease fell through at the last minute. She offered to let me stay at her place temporarily while I found something else. And nothing is temporary with Vanessa. His voice was flat. Sarah, she's been planning this for months. Maybe longer. She researched me, researched us, figured out exactly how to break us apart. Why? But even as I asked, I was starting to understand. The acquisition. My shares are worth 85 million, but the payout is structured over 5 years. Vanessa has been dating the CEO of the acquiring company for 2 years. She knew about the deal before any of us did. The pieces clicked into place. She targeted you. She targeted my money. And she was smart about it. She didn't try to seduce me directly, that would have been obvious. Instead, she convinced me to destroy my marriage first, to isolate myself from everyone who really knew me. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the October air. Marcus, what happened? Why are you telling me this now? He was quiet again, then reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small recording device. Because this morning, I found out what she really thinks of me. He pressed play, and Vanessa's voice filled the space between us, crystal clear. No, Derek, you don't understand. Marcus is perfect. He's completely isolated now, no wife, no friends who'll take his side. He's emotionally dependent on me, and legally, we can argue common law marriage after a year. Even if we can't get it all, 50% of 85 million is still more than enough. What if he finds out? He won't. Marcus isn't smart enough to see the big picture. He's sweet, but he's weak. And weak men with money are easy to control. Marcus stopped the recording. She doesn't know I heard it. She was in the shower, talking to someone on speakerphone. I sat there, processing everything. The woman who'd destroyed my marriage, who'd manipulated my husband into throwing away 8 years of love, who'd had me legally removed from my own home, she'd done it all for money she'd never even earned. Sarah, Marcus continued, I know I can't undo what I did. I know you have every right to hate me. But Vanessa is dangerous. She's not going to stop with just taking my money. She's going to destroy anyone who gets in her way. What do you mean? She's been asking questions about you. Where you're staying, what your financial situation is, whether you might contest the divorce. She's planning something. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Sarah, this is Vanessa Morrison. I think we should meet to discuss your future with Marcus. There are things you should know about your husband that might make this divorce easier for everyone. Coffee tomorrow at 10 a.m.? I'll send the address. Marcus saw me reading and went pale. She doesn't know that I know. Sarah, don't meet with her. Why not? Because whatever she's planning, it's going to hurt you. And I can't. I can't let that happen. Not after everything I've already put you through. I looked at my husband, my soon-to-be ex-husband, sitting there in his expensive clothes, finally seeing clearly what he'd allowed to happen to us. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for him. Part of me wanted to walk away and let Vanessa have exactly what she'd fought so hard for. But a bigger part of me was furious. Marcus, I said slowly, I'm going to meet with her. Sarah, no. Not because I trust her. And not because I forgive you. I stood up, pocketing his phone with all the evidence. But because I'm tired of being the victim in this story. It's time Vanessa Morrison learned that she picked the wrong marriage to destroy. As I walked away, leaving Marcus sitting alone by the lake, I was already planning exactly what I was going to say to the woman who thought she was smart enough to steal my entire life. Tomorrow was going to be very interesting. I spent the entire night planning what I would say to Vanessa Morrison. The coffee shop she'd chosen was in Midtown, expensive, trendy, the kind of place where people conduct business deals and end relationships. I arrived 15 minutes early and picked a table in the corner where I could see the entire room. My phone was in my jacket pocket, already recording. Vanessa walked in at exactly 10 a.m., and I had to admire her strategy. She looked perfect, polished, professional, sympathetic. The kind of woman who could convince a jury she was the victim if this ever went to court. She spotted me immediately and approached with a concerned smile that probably looked genuine to everyone else in the coffee shop. "Sarah, thank you so much for meeting with me." She sat down across from me, placing a designer purse delicately on the table. "I know this must be incredibly difficult for you." "Cut the act, Vanessa." Her smile faltered for just a moment before resetting. "I'm sorry?" "I said cut the act." "I know what you did." She leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping to a concerned whisper. "Sarah, I understand you're angry. Divorce is traumatic, especially when it's so sudden. But taking that anger out on me isn't going to help." "You're right," I said. "Anger won't help. Evidence will." I placed Marcus's phone on the table between us and pressed play on one of her text threads. Her own words filled the space. "Sarah seems sweet, but is she really the right partner for someone of your caliber?" For the first time since she'd sat down, Vanessa's composure cracked. "Sarah, those texts were taken out of context. I was trying to help Marcus work through his feelings." "Help him?" I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to me. "Let's see what other help you provided." I played another message. "You're going to outgrow her, Marcus. Better to end things now before it gets messy, eh?" Vanessa's jaw tightened. "You're invading Marcus's privacy by going through his phone." "Marcus gave me his phone. Along with this." I placed the recording device on the table next to the phone. Her face went completely white. "Should I play the part where you call him weak and easy to control? Or maybe the part where you discuss getting 50% of his money through common law marriage?" Vanessa stared at the recording device like it was a snake. When she looked back up at me, the mask was completely gone. The concerned, sympathetic expression had been replaced by something cold and calculating. "What do you want?" she asked. "I want you to understand that you made a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "You assumed I was weak. You assumed I'd just disappear quietly and let you have everything you'd worked so hard to steal." Vanessa leaned back in her chair, studying me. "Sarah, you need to be very careful here. You're a librarian with no money and no legal representation, going up against people with significant resources. Even if you have those recordings, do you really think anyone will care? Marcus left you voluntarily. He signed the divorce papers himself. After you manipulated him for months." "I gave him perspective," she corrected. "I showed him that he had options." "That's not illegal." "But fraud is. And so is filing false police reports." "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my own phone and showed her a screenshot. "I hired a private investigator yesterday. Funny thing, there's no record of Marcus ever filing a restraining order against me. But there is a record of someone calling in a fake emergency order using a stolen legal letterhead." Vanessa's composure slipped another notch. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" "Because it turns out the law firm Marcus thought he was hiring doesn't actually exist. The address on the paperwork leads to a UPS store mailbox rented under a fake name 3 months ago." I leaned forward. "Right around the time you started your campaign to destroy my marriage." She was quiet for a long moment, then did something I didn't expect. She started laughing. "Sarah, you've really surprised me. I underestimated you, and I don't do that often." She straightened in her chair, and suddenly the woman across from me looked dangerous. But you're still making a mistake. What mistake is that? You think this is about Marcus? You think I targeted him specifically? She shook her head. Marcus was just the easiest option. But there are 6 other men from that startup with significant payouts coming. If Marcus becomes too complicated, there are alternatives. You're going to destroy 6 more marriages? I'm going to secure my future. Do you have any idea how hard it is for women in corporate America? How many times I've been passed over, underpaid, dismissed? Her voice was getting sharper. I've watched mediocre men get promoted while I do twice the work for half the recognition. So yes, I decided to stop playing by their rules. By destroying other women's lives. By taking what I deserve. And if some naive little wives get hurt in the process, that's the cost of doing business. I felt sick. This wasn't just about money, this was about revenge against an entire gender. Vanessa, you need help. No, Sarah. You need help. Because here's what's going to happen. You're going to go back to Marcus and tell him you appreciate his honesty, but you've decided the marriage was over anyway. You're going to take whatever settlement he offers and disappear quietly. And if you don't, I will destroy you. Her voice was calm, matter of fact. I have resources you can't imagine. I can make sure you never work in this city again. I can tie you up in legal battles for years. I can make your life so miserable that you'll wish you'd never met Marcus Chin. You're threatening me. I'm promising you. I looked across the table at this woman who'd systematically dismantled my life for money she hadn't earned, and I felt something shift inside me. The fear, the confusion, the self-doubt, it all crystallized into something harder. Vanessa, I said quietly, you made another mistake. What's that? You assumed I came here alone. Her eyes widened slightly. What do you mean? I mean my private investigator isn't just good at tracking down fake law firms. She's also really good at surveillance. I nodded toward the window. She's been recording this entire conversation from across the street with a telephoto lens and directional microphone. Vanessa turned to look out the window, and I saw her spot the woman with professional camera equipment sitting in the car across the street. And I mean Marcus isn't the only victim willing to come forward, I continued. It turns out David Kim from accounting had a suspicious breakup with his fiancée last month, right after Vanessa Morrison started being extra friendly with him at work events. Her face was stone now. And I mean I didn't spend 8 years married to a tech entrepreneur without learning a few things about digital forensics. Every text you deleted, every fake email you sent, every lie you told, it's all recoverable. I stood up, leaving the recording device and Marcus's phone on the table. So here's what's actually going to happen, Vanessa. You're going to stay away from Marcus. You're going to stay away from every other man at that company. And you're going to quietly find a new job in a different city. And if you don't, then tomorrow morning, every major news outlet in the city is going to receive a very interesting story about corporate fraud, identity theft, and a systematic campaign to destroy marriages for financial gain. Complete with recordings, text messages, and testimony from multiple victims. I started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and Vanessa? I'm not some naive little wife anymore. I'm a woman who just learned she's a lot stronger than she thought. So if you want to try destroying me, go ahead. But I promise you, I'll take you down with me. I left her sitting there, staring at the recording device on the table, probably calculating her next move. But I wasn't worried anymore. Because for the first time in 3 days, I felt like myself again. As I walked out of the coffee shop, my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Sarah, I'm so sorry. For everything. Vanessa just texted me that she's taking a job in Los Angeles. She's leaving next week. I don't know what you said to her, but thank you. I didn't respond. Not yet. Because as satisfying as it had been to watch Vanessa Morrison realize she'd underestimated her target, I still had one more conversation to have. The most important one of all. Marcus was waiting for me outside my motel when I returned that afternoon. He looked different, smaller somehow, sitting on the curb in his expensive clothes like a lost child. When he saw me, he stood up quickly, nervously. Sarah, I heard about your meeting with Vanessa. She's leaving the city. I know. And I wanted to thank you. Don't. I stopped walking and looked at him directly. Marcus, we need to talk, but not here. 20 minutes later, we were back at Prospect Park, sitting on the same bench where everything had started to unravel just days earlier. The afternoon sun was warm, and families were scattered around the lake, feeding ducks and playing with their children. It looked like the life I thought we were building together. Sarah, Marcus began, I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness. You're right. You don't. He flinched, but I continued. Marcus, what Vanessa did was horrible. She manipulated you, lied to both of us, and tried to destroy our marriage for money. But she didn't make your choices for you. I know that. Do you? Because sitting here, listening to you blame everything on her manipulation, I'm not sure you understand what actually happened. He was quiet, waiting. Marcus, you didn't leave me because Vanessa convinced you I was holding you back. You left me because part of you already believed it was true. That's not. Yes, it is. I turned to face him fully. For months before the acquisition, you'd been pulling away from me. Working longer hours, being less present when you were home, getting frustrated when I tried to maintain our routines. Vanessa didn't plant those feelings, she just gave you permission to act on them. Marcus's shoulders sagged. Sarah, I was scared. Scared of what? Of not being good enough for the money. Of everyone finding out I was just some kid from Queens who got lucky. Of you seeing me differently once I had to operate in a different world. So instead of talking to me about those fears, you decided I was the problem? I thought. He stopped, started again. I thought if I could just become someone else, someone who deserved the success, then everything would be easier. And that someone else didn't include your wife. That someone else didn't include anyone who knew who I really was. His voice was barely above a whisper. Sarah, I was terrified that you'd look at me with all that money and still see the guy who used to panic about our electric bill. I felt something crack open in my chest, not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. Marcus, that guy who panicked about the electric bill was the man I fell in love with. He was kind and humble and he treated me like a partner. I know. The man who left me, who had me thrown out of our apartment, who let another woman convince him I was worthless, I don't know who that was, but it wasn't the man I married. We sat in silence for a while, watching a father teach his daughter how to skip stones across the water. Finally, Marcus spoke again. What happens now? Now you have to decide who you want to be, I said. The scared kid from Queens who happened to get lucky, or the man who earned his success and knows how to treat the people he loves with respect. And us? I'd been thinking about this question for days, turning it over and over in my mind like a stone in my pocket. Marcus, I can't trust you anymore. He nodded, tears starting to spill down his cheeks. Not because of Vanessa, and not because of the money. But because when things got difficult, when you felt scared and uncertain, your first instinct was to push me away instead of pulling me closer. That's not how marriages work. Sarah, please. Can't we try counseling? Can't we? We should have tried counseling 6 months ago, when you first started feeling like success was going to change everything. We should have talked about your fears instead of letting them fester. We should have figured out together how to navigate a major life change. We still could. No, Marcus. We can't. I pulled the divorce papers from my purse, the real ones I had drawn up that morning. Because even if we worked through all of this, I'd always wonder if you'd abandon me again the next time life got scary. He stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. Sarah, I love you. I know you do. And I love you too. But love isn't enough when trust is broken. So that's it? That's it. Marcus signed the papers there on the bench, his hands shaking slightly. When he finished, he looked at me with something that might have been relief. What will you do? He asked. I'm going to rebuild my life. On my own terms this time. And what about the money? The settlement? I'd thought about this too. Keep it. All of it. Sarah, you deserve. I deserve a fresh start without any strings attached to the worst week of my life. I stood up, papers in hand. Besides, I have something more valuable than money now. What's that? I know who I am when everything falls apart. I know I'm stronger than I thought, smarter than people assumed, and braver than I ever had to be when I was comfortable. As I walked away from the lake, from the bench where we'd spent so many Sunday mornings, from the man I'd loved for 8 years, I felt something I hadn't expected: excitement. For the first time since college, I didn't know what came next. I didn't have a husband to consider, financial security to maintain, or anyone else's dreams to support. I just had me, and for the first time in years, that felt like enough. 6 months later. I'm writing this from my new apartment in Brooklyn, nothing fancy, but it's mine. Every piece of furniture, every book on the shelves, every photograph on the walls represents a choice. I made for myself. After the divorce was finalized, I took a leave of absence from the library and used my savings to enroll in a digital marketing program. Turns out, all those years of watching Marcus navigate the startup world had taught me more than I realized. I launched my own consulting business 3 months ago, helping small businesses build their online presence. It's scary, running my own company. Some days I work 12 hours and barely break even. But every success feels entirely mine, and every failure teaches me something I couldn't learn when I was playing it safe. Marcus and I don't talk anymore, but I heard through mutual friends that he moved back to Queens after Vanessa left. He donated most of his windfall to a scholarship fund for first-generation college students and kept just enough to live comfortably. He's in therapy now, trying to understand how he let fear turn him into someone he didn't recognize. I hope he figures it out. Not because I want him back, that ship has sailed, but because everyone deserves to learn from their mistakes and become a better person. Vanessa Morrison, as far as I know, never found another job in marketing. It turns out that when you develop a reputation for systematically destroying marriages for profit, the business world stops returning your calls. She moved to Los Angeles as promised, but my private investigator tells me she's working retail now. Sometimes I feel bad about derailing her career, but then I remember David Kim's ex-fiancé, and the other women she was planning to target, and I sleep just fine. The hardest part of this whole experience wasn't the betrayal or the divorce or even starting over at 32. The hardest part was learning to trust my own instincts again. For months, I second-guessed every decision, wondered if I was being naive or overly optimistic or just plain stupid. But slowly, day by day, I started to remember who I was before I defined myself as Marcus's wife. I remembered that I'm resourceful, that I'm a good judge of character, that I'm braver than I look. I remembered that I actually like my own company, and that I don't need someone else to validate my worth. Last week, I was having coffee with Emma. We've rebuilt our relationship since she realized how thoroughly Marcus had manipulated all of us, and she asked me if I regretted fighting so hard to save my marriage. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you just let Vanessa have him?" she asked. I thought about it for a moment. Sometimes. But then I realized that this was never really about Marcus or the money or even Vanessa. What was it about? It was about me learning that I don't have to accept being discarded. That I don't have to smile and disappear quietly when someone decides I'm not good enough for their new life. That I have the right to fight for my dignity, especially when everything seems hopeless. Emma nodded. And now? Now I know that the next time someone tries to make me feel small, I won't shrink. I'll stand taller. I won't lie and say that everything is perfect. Dating feels impossible when you've spent 8 years trusting someone who ultimately betrayed you. Some nights, I still miss the comfort of partnership, the feeling of building something with another person. But I also wake up every morning knowing exactly who I am and what I'm capable of. I know that I can handle crisis, that I can rebuild from nothing, that I can stand up to people who think they're smarter than me. I know that my worth isn't determined by someone else's ability to see it. And maybe that's the real lesson here. We spend so much time trying to prove our value to other people that we forget to prove it to ourselves. It took losing everything I thought I wanted for me to discover everything I actually needed. So to anyone reading this who's going through their own betrayal, their own moment of being discarded or underestimated or told they're not enough, you're stronger than you know. You are more resilient than anyone gives you credit for. And sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is having someone show you exactly who they are when the stakes get high. Because that's when you get to show them, and more importantly, yourself, exactly who you are too. My name is Sarah Chin, I'm 32 years old, and I'm no longer someone's wife or someone's victim. I'm just me, and that turns out to be more than enough. Have you ever experienced betrayal like this? Maybe not to this extreme, but have you ever had someone you trusted completely show you a side of themselves that left you questioning everything you thought you knew about them? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is remind each other that we're not alone in our struggles, and that surviving betrayal isn't just possible, it can be the beginning of the most authentic version of yourself you've ever discovered.